Hi, this is Chris McKaylee, and I think there are some legislative rules that are generally known just by their numbers because we hear them often on the floor or in committee, but particularly on the floors of the California State Legislature. Now, there are three sets of rules: the joint rules of the Assembly and Senate, and then the standalone single House rules, the Senate rules, of course, and the Assembly rules. There are some procedural rules in the legislature that are most often known merely by their number. So I wanted to cover with you some of those rules that are most often heard in the state legislative process. We'll first go over the assembly rules, and then the Senate rules, and then the joint rules. And there's just a handful of each, but again, these are the most commonly heard. Assembly Rule 45.5, often on the floor. It is concerning the presentation of guests or memorials in the assembly, and basically provides that guests may be introduced while the assembly is in session and memorials can be given at the end of the floor session. Assembly Rule 77.2 deals with substantially amended bills, and it says that if an amendment to a bill makes a substantial substantive change to the bill, either passed by in committee or on the floor, that it may be referred by the speaker to an appropriate committee. It is similar to Senate Rule 29.10. The other assembly rule often heard is 96. It's a motion to withdraw or re-refer a bill. Historically, it had been done by the Assembly Rules Committee, but during COVID, they began doing it on the floor itself, and now it's just an easier route. And basically, it's a motion to withdraw a bill from committee or to re-refer a bill from one committee to another, and it's made during the regular course of business on the assembly floor and requires a majority vote of members for that motion to be successful. Two main Senate rules. 28.8 deals with the Appropriations Committee, and it says that any bill referred to the Committee on Appropriations that does not appropriate money may not be set for hearing and shall, along with any non-substantive amendments, be promptly reported to the Senate floor with a recommendation that it be placed on the second reading file because either state costs are not significant or the bill will not cause significant reduction in revenues. That motion, 28.8, is not available on the Assembly side, although the Assembly Appropriations Committee in recent years has begun using its consent calendar in a similar way. The other Senate rule often heard is 29.10. Again, it's similar to the Assembly Rule 77.2. The difference is the Senate is done by the Committee on Rules, whereas the Assembly one is done by the Speaker. And so that's the re-referral of a substantively amended bill, either in committee or on the floor, has to be re-referred to the Committee on Rules for a determination whether rules will then in turn refer it to a policy committee for further consideration. And there's a couple to be aware of that we often hear that are joint rules. The first is 10.5. Joint Rule 10.5 deals with the re-referral to fiscal committees. And it is the determination made by the Office of Legislative Counsel where a bill is to be re-referred after the policy committee, one or more policy committees, to the fiscal committee of the Senate or Assembly of each House, where the bill appropriates money. The second criteria, if it results in substantial expenditure of state money. Third, if it results in substantial increase or loss of revenue to the state. Or the fourth, if it results in a substantial reduction of expenditures of state money by reducing, transferring, or eliminating any existing responsibilities of a state agency, program, or their function. Joint Rule 55, we sometimes hear being waived or suspended. It's the 30-day in-print rule or the 30-day waiting period. So a bill other than the budget bill cannot be heard or acted upon in any committee of either house until the bill has been in print for 30 days. Now this rule can be suspended pursuant to Article 4, Section 8 of the Constitution if by a 2/3 vote of that house the bill is the waiting period is suspended for that particular bill. And that's under Joint Rule 55 and of course the Constitution. The other ones are 61A, 61B, and 62A. So Joint Rule 61A first, is dealing with deadlines in the odd numbered year. And so in the first year of the 2-year legislative session, these are the deadlines that are observed by both the Senate and Assembly. Joint Rule 61B deals with deadlines, but in the even numbered year. So these are the deadlines that are observed by the Senate and Assembly during the even numbered year, of course, of the 2-year legislative session. And the last one is Joint Rule 62A, which is on committee procedure. And basically it says that notice of a hearing of a bill in committee of first referral or an informational hearing needs to have 4-day file notice in the respective Assembly daily file or Senate daily file. Otherwise, the file notice is 2 days for a second or subsequent policy committee hearing. So again, these are some of the legislative rules that are most commonly known by their actual number.